Hi, my name is Brian Primock. I'm Director of Sales and an employee owner here at InSource Solutions. And I'd like to welcome you to Extreme Factory Makeover, the Operational Efficiency Edition. Over the next few months, we'll be offering a 10-part webinar series focused on sharing professional tips and advice on implementing an OEE program that can improve operational efficiency in your plant by 10% or more. We'll offer the advice of experts who will walk you through the steps to implement and sustain significant improvements from an operational efficiency program. These steps have helped many of our clients generate millions of dollars a year in savings. And as an example of what's to come, we'll discuss what it takes, factors to consider, costs, technology, planning, and risk from experienced professionals who have walked the walk already and have wisdom to share. So let's get started. So it's been 8 years since the Great Recession, and while the economy is recovering, there's a magic word American companies are having a hard time finding in their lexicon, and that's growth. In fact, a recent book by economist Robert Gordon makes a strong case that the days of robust U.S. economic growth are behind us. He argues that the rate of growth that drove our factories and employed millions for the past century was driven by investment and exploration that have delivered unprecedented inventions and will be hard to repeat. But as a country, we'll face significant headwinds, and this could significantly curb growth for generations to come. And that lack of growth has created headaches for American manufacturers as companies turn to operations to find ways to cut costs and keep the bottom lines healthy for their investors. If this sounds like the situation at your company, you're not alone. And the good news is that InSource has been helping industrial clients make significant improvements to their productivity and profitability for almost 2 decades. In fact, at InSource, we believe that unlike our presidential candidates who have promised millions of new jobs, it will be the ingenuity of the millions of people employed in manufacturing today that will find innovative ways to re-engineer and revitalize our industry. At InSource, our employee owners believe it's our mission to help with this renaissance. We recognize that our clients' employees are motivated, and there is an opportunity to engage personnel from the plant floor to the executive suite in using more than just their hands and hard work. And we believe in engaging your people in the transformation of their company into a high-performance, knowledge-driven organization. So to do our part, we've developed a free 10-episode season called The Extreme Factory Makeover, with the goal of sharing the knowledge and experience we've gleaned from hundreds of operational efficiency projects we've helped clients successfully complete over the last 20 years. Our first series will tackle operational efficiency and more specifically implementing an OEE solution. And we are issuing a 10% challenge. We believe that every plant has a process or a line they can improve by 10%. That might mean producing 10% more units per shift, reducing downtime, decreasing waste, maybe even using 10% less energy. Are you up for the challenge? We are. And we've pulled together a team of subject matter experts who will share the strategies, technologies, and best practices from real-world case studies. In our 10-part series, we'll cover: where do I start? What is the right scope for my OEE project? How much will it cost? How do I build a solid plan? How do I decide on the right technology? What is the Wonderware OEE solution, and how does it work? How do I deploy this solution successfully? How do I drive engagement with my people? And how do I evaluate and use the OEE data I'm seeing? And most importantly, how do I sustain the results I'm going to see? This all sounds great. So what's the catch? Well, there is none. In September of this year, InSource became a 100% employee-owned company. To celebrate that milestone, and in keeping with our internal values to share our knowledge and experience, we are offering the ideas and approach for all to use to help achieve these results. We believe it also fills our mission of helping to revitalize manufacturing. Can you imagine the impact to our economy if 1,000 companies took the 10% challenge? So perhaps the tough question is, all right, where do I start? One of the most common and accepted approaches in a typical manufacturing plant is to look at overall equipment effectiveness, or OEE. It's a term that was coined way back in the 60s to evaluate how effectively a manufacturing operation is being utilized. OEE, when used correctly, can use information that is fairly easy to obtain to allow companies to benchmark against the standard. And then with the right discipline and coaching, they can use this to achieve a 10% improvement in their performance. So there is a solution, but it's not what you might think. Let's face it, speaking as a technology company, we've chosen to partner with Wonderware, the market leader in manufacturing IT solutions for 30 years. And we love to show off the latest technology and imagine ways we can use it to make your plant work better. So the trick is technology, right? Well, we'd say that's only partially right. Through the lens of our experience applying IT solution to hundreds of projects, we're the first to advise our clients that technology alone is not enough. It is just one of the tools that's available to achieve operational efficiency. Too many companies, including ourselves, have put blind faith in the promises of technology alone to solve the problem. Perhaps you too work for a company that has already gone down the technology path and didn't achieve the results that were promised. Or perhaps you're thinking, adding more technology to our current situation is really the last thing we need to do to improve. We believe that manufacturers have taken on the concept of continuous improvement as a series of discrete and disconnected events. In general, they view the improvements in technology and process as disconnected from one another. So we believe the magic bullet is an approach that leverages software tools with a hands-on workforce engagement to produce a fully integrated, process-based system that empowers a workforce to be their best. So what kind of results can be achieved? Here's just a quick scorecard of what's possible. Let's start with New Belgium Breweries, one of the leaders in the microbrewing segment, improving their operating efficiencies more than 86% using technology with a continuous improvement platform that focuses their efforts to analyze the data versus simply report on it. And then there's Snyder's-Lance, who used our integrated approach to roll out a program that improved operating efficiencies of more than 15%, saving over $3 million of product waste in just the first year at only one of their bakeries. And one of our favorite stories is Rich Products Company. Rich's is a family-owned company headquartered in Buffalo, New York, that provides food products to the services, supermarkets, and retail industries. Jim Whalen, Director of Continuous Improvement, has worked with our team for over 8 years, and he's spoken multiple times on their journey to improvement. As he tells the story, he was a manufacturing director at the time when his manager asked if he would like to lead a high-performing team to drive continuous improvement programs at 18 facilities all around the country. His immediate response was, "Thanks, but not interested." But when his manager asked a third time, he realized he wasn't really asking. The reason he was reluctant was that being the corporate guy, traveling to multiple sites, carrying a plan that meets with doubt and skepticism can be a daunting task. But he and Rich's turned to InSource for help, and together we implemented a scalable platform that has been the foundation for 3 continuous improvement programs that have generated tens of millions of dollars of savings and much higher employee satisfaction. Over the next 3 months, we'll walk through their success story, framing out the approach and tools to give everyone interested the opportunity to use them and tailor them to their own needs. And we'll hear from experts and coaches that help them as they dig into the details and talk about what to anticipate on your journey. So here's the schedule of topics for this season. In episode 1, we'll discuss planning. Where do I start? How will we do this? In episode 2, what is the right scope for our OEE improvement project? Episode 3, how much does a typical project cost? In episode 4, how do I build an OEE project plan? In episode 5, what's the right technology for this OEE improvement project? Do I even need to buy software? And if so, what software should I use? In episode 6, we'll discuss what the Wonderware OEE solution looks like. And then mid-season, we'll do a first half recap and a live question and answer session. Episode 7 will start off the second part of the season, answering the question, how do I deploy an OEE solution? how does production and operations need to prepare for an OEE project deployment? In episode 8, we'll discuss how to drive OEE solution engagement. Episode 9, how do I evaluate and use the early OEE data I'm seeing? In episode 10, we'll ask, how do I sustain the early improvements we're seeing? What routines and or audits are needed, and what should we do as a minimum? And by comparison, what's best in class? And at the end of the season, we'll wrap it all up with the live event in our learning lab at our Davidson, North Carolina location. I love this quote by Winston Churchill. If there's one single characteristic of the companies we've worked with that correlates with best-in-class results, it's the belief and effort in planning for an OEE project. Research done on the success rate of large IT projects supports what we have observed. Several large studies have all published nearly identical results. Despite pouring billions of dollars into large IT projects, roughly 2/3 fail to meet expectations in one of the 3 major criteria: budget, functionality, and delivery. And almost 1 out of every 6 large IT projects fails so badly it threatens the existence of the entire company. So what can we learn from all these failures? Well, at the top of the list, a primary cause is that the team didn't use their problem-solving and analytic skills to think through problems and how to solve them. Another way to look at this is that while there is a popular sentiment to simply build a technology solution and people will learn to love it, the data suggests otherwise. Nowhere is this more prevalent than in today's manufacturing environment, where companies have significantly leaned out their technical staff. With powerful computers, abundant smart devices, and low-cost software apps, it's becoming cheaper than ever to collect more data. But the technology alone rarely leads to sustained improvements. Rather, it's often the case that humans that interface with these solutions are assaulted with more data without the benefit of pre-thought as to what data is most impactful, what is considered good versus bad, and what actions can be taken to improve it. So when we look at planning, another undervalued benefit is the significant impact it can have on the cost and risk over the life cycle of a project. This chart is something we share with prospective clients. The vertical axis represents the influence planning can have on the cost of the project. The horizontal axis represents the project timeline and typical stages from start to finish. In the middle, the black line represents the earliest stage of procurement. So to the left is the effort to design the solution, and to the right, the effort to execute it. In short, companies miss the best opportunity to reduce the life cycle cost of a typical project when they fail to plan. I'll give an example at the end of the episode, but best-in-class companies invest wisely in the concept and design phases of a project, using it as a sort of blueprint to deliver the functionality they desire within the time and budget estimates the plan helped them generate. In non-project management terms, I think we all have had the experience with a home building project and can relate to the cartoon. It is always more expensive to add that one additional thing after the construction is started. Another misperception about planning is that it's simply paying someone else so that vendors can give us a quote. Bianca Scholten, in her excellent book, MES Guide for Executives, does a great job of addressing this very concern. She relates to a client engagement at a chemical plant where the IT manager complained about the need for a user requirements as wasting money on one of those fat documents that consultants write and nobody reads. On the contrary, she goes on to relate that for clients that have had best-in-class operational efficiency programs, they don't go through the whole effort to provide the vendor with information for a quote. The project helps them come to internal agreement about what's really wanted. A good plan is like a piece of art. It starts as a blank canvas, but done right, with interviews, conversations, and even some debate, it becomes a shared vision that everyone in the organization can and should have input on to get a final result. For executives, it provides a great opportunity to act as a conductor, view the contributions and tone of all the major functions of their organization: IT, engineering, quality, even finance and accounting, and then put their individual style and vision on the plan so that all will understand what they are trying to achieve. For now, I'd like to highlight the 3 most common mistakes in planning that sabotage an OEE project. The first is what I'll call metric overload. With so many connected devices and so much data available, companies fall prey to the temptation to measure too much. They also don't go through the mental exercise of rationalizing what matters most and what outputs are critical to their performance goals. And so as a result, many clients find themselves awash in data, but lack focus and understanding on what matters most and when to act. So a classic tool our team uses with clients is a Brownpaper exercise. Basically, we cover a wall with paper and a coach leads all the stakeholders through a map of their process. We begin by mapping the process and engaging their people to understand the big picture of how they contribute to the objectives of the plant. In fact, that's a picture of it, hanging on the shop floor with their notes and markups all over it. This allows us to develop routines for the supervisors to use in engaging their operators and focus on the vital few elements that impact their performance. It also provides clarity around the few critical procedures that the operators just have to follow. And as always, we help refine their KPIs to make sure what they speak to is what people need to focus on most. A lot of process work that engages their people in new and different ways. So another common mistake is not thinking through the project as an end-to-end process that maps the journey from data to a usable tool. Common mistakes we see include not getting enough input from project stakeholders on the sources and type of information. For instance, engineering may focus primarily on the automated sources of downtime and think in terms of discrete events and their associated reason codes in order to isolate process issues. On the other hand, operations management might want data grouped by work order, line, shift, product type to understand cost efficiencies. Another example is not getting the operator's perspective on designing data input tools. Often, operators are dealt with after deployment, but if the data collection tool is cumbersome or inefficient, operators will often reject it or find ways to shortcut it, thus undermining the whole initiative. And finally, gaining agreement from all parties that will use the system on common definitions. It's common for there to be disagreement on how to define the state of the equipment during changeover, ramp up, clean in place, and maintenance. The result can be a rejection of this solution because it is considered too painful or because the people that are expected to act on the data just don't believe in it. And finally, a third mistake is focusing exclusively on the proverbial quick hit. A technology-first approach makes it easy to deploy data silos. In fact, consider the types and sources of data that we rely on every day to do our jobs. One of the details overlooked in a quick hit approach is the variety of data that a company might want to consider in an early pilot. So for instance, a company may focus on only sensor data, typically indicating whether a piece of equipment is running or not, or how much production they've produced, and what their scrap amounts are. But as the program matures and quick improvements are identified, there is a desire to layer in more data to find more areas of efficiency gain. These other sources may have different granularity, models, and even naming conventions. And so as a result, organizations often find they are sprouting islands of databases across the organization as they transition from static reports developed from these standalone applications to asking more what-if questions. It's only then that they start to consider how to tap into and relate all of this information from these different sources. When organizations mature to this state, they begin to invest a great deal in what are commonly called ETL solutions. These are highly customized applications that are designed to extract, translate, and load to create this broader view of what's happening on the factory floor. A better approach would be to think through the potential use cases for your solution in the concept phase, to consider the different business questions you're anticipating answering and the data sources you might access to get these answers. The chart on the right shows 3 axes of freedom: time granularity, diversity of data, and the originality of the reporting expected from the system. This helps characterize the solution framework required to achieve these results. And to wrap up this segment, I'll show you a quick real-world example of how to lay the groundwork for success with a solid plan. This is a recent example for a Tier 1 automotive company that contacted us with the goal of deploying an OEE solution. Industrial customers are under more pressure than ever to justify the return from their application software investments. One way to accomplish this is through the installation of core platforms that are modular, flexible, and extensible. As marketplace dynamics shift in this new global economy, companies need to build a roadmap that leads to a flexible IT framework that can be built out over multiple years with smart, manageable capital investments. In most mature plants, there are 4 distinct platforms which form the basic building blocks of a modern manufacturing information system. The first platform is the data collection layer, which presents a common interface for data collected from a broad array of hardware, legacy systems, and even third-party databases. A second layer is a manufacturing operations management platform, which supports common manufacturing activities in the plant. This platform enables modular solutions that address the specific business issues in your facility. The third layer is the manufacturing intelligence layer. It provides a single, coherent view of the plant. This layer pulls data from multiple platforms, and the modules represent the different ways to present that information based on role and function. And finally, the process historian platform is the data collection DVR that pulls data primarily from the data collection area to record process data and provide the tools that allow for troubleshooting and process optimization. So no organization can do this all at once. To manage and defend the return for this investment, a very successful approach is to craft a strategy that creates a vision defined in terms of your business needs, defines a technical program of incremental steps from the current state to the visionary state, selects technical platforms that are matched with this vision, ensures that key stakeholders are driving the execution according to the plan, and prepares the organization for the initial deployment and for future sustainability. The end result is a multi-year plan that takes the company from the current state to the desired future state through project waves that implement the modules required based on priority with manageable bite-sized investments and resources. So back to the case of our automotive client. They opted to take the time to build this out. Our team worked with theirs to interview all the people that would interact with this system, from operators to C-level sponsors. Through this effort, we scripted their own roadmap with waves of innovation that would take them from their current state to this shared vision. So for step 1 in their roadmap, they opted to invest in a common data collection layer by installing a new SCADA platform from Wonderware that also connected to some existing SCADA workstations and exposed only what was needed without having to replace it all. In the second wave, they settled on a platform for manufacturing operations management, also from Wonderware, that could support all the modules they planned to deploy. On top of this platform, which would share a common plant model and namespace, they deployed the OEE solution for the lines they identified when the project was originally started. In conjunction with this, they chose an MI platform from the same vendor and deployed a plant dashboard module that fed both large format OEE displays on the line as well as a view of the key metrics in their war room to facilitate more efficient production meetings. And from their planning, they identified 2 future areas they felt would be the next steps in priority. Step 4 was identified as a quality module. By recognizing this need early in the concept phase, it will now be implemented at a much lower cost than by sharing the same framework, model, and naming conventions. And finally, due to the input from some C-level sponsors who were aware of future needs from their offshore corporate headquarters to integrate more data with their ERP, a connector was added as step 5. And again, this ERP connector can now be implemented at a much lower cost when it's required by leveraging previous investments and using common components.
So Brian, I hate to cut you off, but we're running out of runway for episode 1, and we promised our audience that these would be mini webinars, i.e. 20 minutes or less. So let's summarize what we heard today. Hi, my name is Ann Kroom. I'm an employee owner at InSource Solutions and also its president and CEO. And I will have the honor of hosting our team during this 10-part series. Now, as a super quick recap, in this first episode, we hope you heard the following from Brian. Number 1, what is the InSource 10% Challenge all about? You got a quick overview of our Extreme Factory Makeover 10-part webinar series. How to plan, deploy, adopt, and maintain, as well as sustain a successful OEE initiative. Number 2, you got to see what a great plan for improving operational efficiency looks like, including tips to help you avoid 3 common pitfalls of laying out an OEE improvement project. And 3, you learned about how a real-life automotive supplier recently approached their incremental OEE plan and the resulting IT architecture. So we hope you'll join us again in 3 weeks for episode 2. It's entitled, What's the Right Scope for Your OEE Improvement Project? Because by then, we've assumed that you've decided to take the 10% challenge. And we're going to talk about what's next. Namely, 1, how to determine the right scope for your OEE project or program. How can you gauge how much change your organization can absorb right now? And finally, you'll hear from experts on what options you have for scaling a solution. So go now to our website and sign up for episode 2. We at InSource know that 10% improvement is doable. We've seen it, but results do vary. And to have an InSource consultant visit your plant and to see what type of results are possible, we hope you'll contact us at the number on the screen or at www.insource.solutions. I've even included Brian's extension. I know he'd personally be delighted to put you in touch with the perfect resource to get a quick assessment of what's possible. And now I'd like to close with a very exciting first-of-its-kind offer. If you already know or just suspect that the 10% challenge results are within your reach, but you just don't have the budget to get started right now, we have an offer that we're really excited about. We're putting our money where our mouth is and offering a free 2-week engagement from InSource and Wonderware. This is essentially a $45,000 software and services value. You can find out more details about this contest at our Extreme Factory Makeover website. But the purpose aligns with our InSource purpose. Simply put, we want to help your organization take the first important step toward increased productivity and profitability. So we hope you'll decide to take the 10% challenge. And until next time.